WikiLeaks is a non-state hostile intelligence service.
Julian Assange
is a high-tech terrorist.
A traitor, a treasonous.
He has to answer for what he has done.
Assange faces up to 175 years in prison for publishing classified documents exposing U.S. war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan.
He has been detained since the 7th of December 2010 in one form or another.
And we are now here after years of imprisonment, seeing whether he will actually be extradited or not.
Julian Assange is a hero.
WikiLeaks has performed this extraordinary public service.
If you think Assange is a traitor, he's a rapist, he's a narcissist, he's a hacker, I don't blame you because you have been deceived. And if you think you've not been deceived, that's normal because otherwise it wouldn't be deception.
A plan to destroy both WikiLeaks and Julian was laid out in a secret document dated 8th of March 2008. The authors were the Cyber Counterintelligence Assessment Branch of the US Defense Department.
It is a David and Goliath battle. Julian is like our David.
Julian took on the most powerful countries in the world. I don't know whether Julian fully foresaw what he was likely to get.
And I started really digging into this case, and the deeper I got into it, the more dirt came out. But it was not on the side of Assange and WikiLeaks, it was on the side of the government.
We now have confirmed that there were plans to kidnap Julian here in the center of London, or even assassinate him.
This U.S. extradition case has been falling apart since the moment it started, because it was born rotten. It was born at a time when the CIA was plotting to assassinate Julian.
The level of unlawful activity in the pursuit of Julian Assange should be enough to have this entire case thrown out.
All we have ever asked is that states obey their own laws.
In the trial of Julian, what they did was so grotesque and so shameless. They used witnesses who later said they were lying. This was not accepted by the British court. They were not interested in listening to the arguments.
The United States has applied for his extradition, but he's treated as a criminal in this glass corridor. In order to talk to his lawyers, he had to kneel down, press his ear to the glass so he could hear what they had to say and to talk to him. It was absurd.
I don't care what country you are not going to have your laws apply to our citizens when they're not even in your bloody country.
And our finding was that Mr. Assange shows all the symptoms of a person who has been exposed to psychological torture. Psychological torture is by no means torture light.
He had a stroke while subjected to the most intense psychological pressure possible.
In this age of coercion, one of the most grotesque forms of coercion is war.
If wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth.
The lives of our families are important to all of us. And this is what Julian's trying to prevent. What he's saying is that if we knew the truth about wars, then they wouldn't happen.
What Assange and WikiLeaks did in 2010 was the biggest game changer in my lifetime. It exposed once and for all the lies that the wars were based on and the lies that the wars are.
They will go after anyone who dares challenge the right of power of the oligarchy without frontiers to commit crimes against humanity in our name without our knowledge. Press freedom is steadily deteriorating around the world. It's getting worse year by year as journalists are targeted for reporting the truth. Everybody should care because it impacts us all.
This goes to the fundamentals of press freedom and of democracy.
It's not a legal battle at all. It's a political battle. It is based on hateful and spiteful revenge of a powerful entity that wants to get back at the individual who exposed the truth about it. It is that simple.
For 5,000 years, human civilization has been battling to establish, maintain and defend our right to free speech, free expression and a free press. With the formation of large civilizations came order, structure and harsh restrictions on speech. We've been in a struggle to claw back our freedoms ever since.
The persecution of Julian has been a kind of long, slow form of killing somebody.
I've taken so many steps for so many years, and I feel like Julian's life might be coming to an end.
We have the right to exist. We have a right to live. And we have a right for this nightmare to come to an end once and for all.
Humans descend in an unbroken line, through generations, through eons of time. Whether we realize it or not, we are joined in a single strand of a shared destiny. The powerful would have us in chains made of metal. But if we can all put our minds together, our hearts together, and our hands together, we may find that hearts that yearn for justice are stronger than cold iron.
This is generally the view on people. Oh, we don't know much about Assange. Well, you should know, because whether you know it or not, he is fighting for you, and you're right to know.
They are about to take every right away from you. You will not be able to fight for any other cause. We are talking about the fundamentals here.
WikiLeaks just succeeded in finding documents that existed and making them available to the world public. What could be more honorable than that?
Hi guys, thanks for joining us. Paul Seils here, and a very special guest, of course, Julian Assange's father, John Shipton. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Hi, Catherine.
I got to see, well, I wanted to say Happy New Year to you, but like, it feels inappropriate to say under the circumstances as well, John, but I did get to see the movie in the last week called The Trust Fall, and there were some moments in the movie, like I've been in this conversation, I've known you for quite a few years, and there were still times when I watched this documentary that it literally brought me to tears.
Yeah, it's not so comfortable to watch it, but it's a matter that moves the heart and the head and moves it in the right direction. I myself, I find, I couldn't watch the film, and I couldn't watch Ithaca either. But there is something that we can say. A powerful German politician once said to me that it didn't happen until it's in the newspapers. And that he was an older man, so his basis, his views upon a few years ago, let's say 30 years ago. But now it didn't happen until it's confirmed by a documentary. And in the case of Julian, that's a constant affirmation of, in the positive, many millions of people around the world fighting to see justice done for Julian, now fighting to see justice done in Gaza, and joining those two elements together. And you can see worldwide there's a shift. And to demonstrate this, it's very simple. Trust Fall doesn't have an advertising budget. Okay?
Right.
Its first showing in Brisbane, got 400 people. This shows to you that in the first place, people don't go out to the movies much to watch documentaries. So there's got to be compelling within them to go and see it. And also it demonstrates to us the increasing depth of the conviction that Julian must be brought home, and secondly, the understanding that it's on us to ensure our sovereignty, and this is emblematic of our sovereignty. We have moved an entire government to take up Julian Assange's case, the Australian government. So now it's a state-to-state matter. I can't emphasise too much how important that understanding is. When a state gets involved, that means that all of the institutions of state begin to be involved to solve a problem. And when the Prime Minister of Australia, Albanese, says as follows, that he cannot see the point of this prosecution continuing and it must be brought to a close, he is doing three things. One, he's speaking to the electorate and he's saying we are doing something. Secondly, he's speaking to the institutions of state in Australia and saying, look, find me a solution to this problem. It's a diplomatic, interstate problem. And thirdly, is signalling to the United States through its ambassador and through its secondary institutions within Australia, the CIA, all of those institutions that feed back into the State Department, is signalling to them that his populace, the population of Australia, is dissatisfied with this, and the government of Australia is dissatisfied. Now, the conclusion you can make so far is that the heft of Prime Minister Albanese is maybe called into question because the problem hasn't been solved. That's one. Two, is the institutions of state in Australia, the DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, haven't come up with a sufficient answer to engage the United States Department of State and Department of Justice. They haven't, and either they are reluctant to do so because of their historical position. In other words, they're ignoring their Prime Minister, or the United States hasn't yet found the means whereby they can convince themselves to accede to Australia's wishes. That means that Australia's heft in its relationship with the United States has to improve. And this is sovereignty.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, John. I think a lot of people have a lot of subjective interpretation about sovereignty. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is also, of course, now the late John Pilger, who was featured in the documentary as well. And I knew that you were close to him. And then also John was a very, very strong advocate for Julian's cause. I think I heard the news that he'd passed on New Year's Eve and was deeply shocked. I just wanted to see if you wanted to add anything in relation to John
yes,
and his efforts.
I can add this, that I knew John really well, and personally he was warm and loyal. In my view, a magnificent human being in all and every matter, and a great son of the Australian soil. Now that's the point I want to thump home, a great son of the Australian soil. That is, that we give reverence to those that carried our shield forward as Australians.
Mm-hmm.
There are many of them, and yet we have a deficiency in acknowledging their contributions in art, in writing, and in, politics, Gough Whitlam or others. So I think that we must, first of all, supply or strengthen the nervous system. That is the culture, and that is reverencing those that have gone before us.
Yes. Yes. I just wanted to check in. I know you do speak with Julian regularly. So how is Julian doing at the moment, John?
He's very much up and down these days because it's getting now onto the knife edge of being sent to the United States. And if I could just address that matter for a minute. In the United States, they have two systems of prison. One is the federal prison, the Federal Prison Service, which Julian would go into, which is simply sadistic, nothing other. It's just sadism. And the other prison service, which is slavery, that is, that it has 2.2 million people in their prison population who make things on the cheap for corporations. And I also believe that after the International Court of Justice delivers its verdict, that people will become enthusiastic about addressing what we might call evils, or what we've called profound wrongs in secular language, and the sadistic federal system of prisons in the United States will be one of the matters addressed, and also the slave population, the 2.2 million people that are in prisons in the United States that work for corporations on the cheap.
Interesting. One of the things that I did find interesting about the documentary, and that's where someone was doing an interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he made the comment to the effect that if he was elected, that he would release Julian. Is that new information? I hadn't heard it previously.
No, I don't. I've had Bobby's contacts for some good time now, and we did a platform together recently in San Jose, just a couple of months ago, and then prior to that, a year before that, I had done he does a podcast, and I had done a podcast with him. Prior to that, I had written to him, and he had written back that, God willing, if Providence so declares that he be President of the United States, he will pardon Julian Assange. Vivek Ramaswamy, who just recently withdrew from candidature for the presidency, also said the same thing. Marianne Williamson, a Democrat, a candidate, also says the same thing. Cornel West, an independent candidate who's at the moment running at 6% of the vote total, he says the same thing, that he will free Julian. Trump's people make, in particular his son, makes utterances similar. So
sorry, you go.
So it's curious that Julian's matter now is a worldwide cause célèbre, to the extent that all the candidates for the presidential election in the United States favour freedom for Julian and pardon for Julian. Not that there's anything to pardon him from. He hasn't done anything. For God's
What's
sake.
the correct terminology there, John?
Oh,
released.
Yeah, they call it pardon because the charges have been sort of laid in an indictment. But, you know, I would call it, you know, just waking up after a nightmare, that's all.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it done for them?
Hmm.
Brought their reputation to ruin right around the world and frightened the life out of everybody who's in journalism and publishing.
Yes.
that they'll get, well, now 15 years of harassment and incarceration.
I think that was the other thing that I picked up in the film as well. They mentioned that there's over 500 journalists in the world that are currently incarcerated, including Julian.
Yeah, this gives them, you know, most people see, most states take their signals from the United States, as to, or used to. Of course, that's rapidly changing since Gaza. Nobody wants to take any notice of the United States anymore, because without the United States, the Gaza thing would stop today.
It was interesting as well, as I mentioned to you, I met General Michael Flynn when I was in the US about late last year, and also had a conversation. He said the same thing to the effect, and also tweeted after Tucker Carlson had the conversation when met with Julian, that he said, Major General Flynn also said that, General Flynn said that Julian should be released.
I find General Flynn an admirable man.
Yeah.
And badly treated by his president.
Yeah. So I think that's like, what else can, like, what's in a perfect world, what's the transition for the timeline moving forward, and how would you like to see it unfold? Favorable is what's the timeline in relation to the hearing matters, the moving forward?
The hearing, Julian's applied for a hearing. The decision whether he's going to get a hearing or not will be made on the days 21 to 24 of February. Okay?
Right.
Now, when they release that judgment, I don't know. If Julian does get a hearing, when that hearing will be held, again, is a mystery. So just on appeals, I try to keep count of the number of court cases. I think it's 25 now. And they're interminable. The whole thing, you know, if you read about it in a history book, you would say, oh, they don't do things very good in the medieval times, did they? You know, locking people up just forever. I mean, he is incommunicado. He's not allowed to say stuff.
Yeah.
It's just primitive. He's not allowed to say stuff. That's why he's in that maximum security lockup. They put terrorists in, so murder.
I mean, the question to be asked at this point in time, John, and I don't know whether you can answer it or not, but beyond what's transpired and what we do know, ultimately, you know, there's other conversations that people like Robert Malone have had publicly about even the use of fifth generational warfare against citizens of their own countries and that sort of thing at the moment, people being propagandized and that sort of thing. But, you know, people are sort of trying to get to the source of what is really the underlying reason for Julian's continuing incarceration.
I guess I can nominate 3, which make your choice. Hillary Clinton hates him because she reckons that he caused her to miss out on the presidency. And she's a very, very powerful woman in the United States. Of course, my own comment is that if you call half your voting population deplorables and expected to get elected, you're a bit deluded.
Yeah.
The next one would be that the United States wants to demonstrate to all publishers and journalists that if you do anything that we don't like, your life is over and your family life is over, and your family will go bankrupt trying to save your life. And the third element is that the United States progressively over the last 15 years has seen fit to remake all the extradition treaties with the countries that would, so that people can be extradited to the United States using extraterritorial laws, using the United States laws to harvest anybody or kidnap anybody that they didn't like or wanted to take to the United States. Another example, other than Julian, is Mike Lynch, who's an entrepreneur in Britain, in Great Britain, who sold a company to HP, Hewlett Packard, for, I think, from memory, $7 billion. Hewlett Packard ran it into the ground and couldn't run it properly, so that they wanted their money back. Mike said no with the deal. You made the deal. So they extradited Mike to the United States, and they hold him there until he signs over the money that Hewlett Packard paid out.
Wow.
That's the same with the kidnapping, or, I call it kidnapping, of Huawei's daughter, the managing director of Huawei. They kidnapped in Canada and held there for 2 years, fighting extradition. So that's the three reasons that that I can see. No doubt the United States has a habit of running both sides of the ledger. For example, they'll say, we have the First Amendment, and we have freedom in the United States, and you can say anything you like. On the other side of the ledger is that if you utter anything that they don't like, you're gone.
So the question is asked as well for people, how can they support Julian moving forward? Is he still receiving mail, financial donations, etc.?
Julian, there's a little website called writejulian.com. He loves to get a letter, feeling the world cares and extending yourself out into the world when you're locked up in a small cell 23 hours a day. Is health-giving. But also, the Australians have been magnificent, I've got to say. And we started back in 2019, August 2019. I better go back a little bit further. In 2016, we started to wander around Parliament. There were 2 parliamentarians supporting. Then we started with a bit more vigour in 2019 when Julian went into Belmarsh. Now we have 60 parliamentarians. We have a delegation that went to the United States of 6 Australian parliamentarians, Greens, Conservatives and Labor. And they were well received in the United States, establishing communion between the Congress, the United States, and the Parliament, the Australian Parliament, is really important. And that communion is over Julian Assange. So that's something constructive. Equally, the Australian Parliamentary Group have written to James Cleverly, who's the Secretary of Justice in the United Kingdom, and also Congress itself has, from both sides of the aisle, put together a motion to have the charges dropped, and also written, both sides of the aisle, a separate letter, a separate occasion, written to President Biden. So pretty big, and that emanates from us, Nobody else.
Yeah.
Nobody else. It emanates from the Australian people.
Mm.
So, fellas, keep it up. All you got to do. And another thing I've found, parliamentarians, they don't know your concerns. They only know what comes across the newspaper.
Yeah.
So the best to go and say, look, solve this problem. It's a worry for us. And it's also best to take a couple of friends along from the same electorate. And this really impresses the parliamentarians.
Mm.
This is their job. And when it's brought to them as their job, they respond. When it's brought across as a newspaper thing, well, they worry, you know, a little bit here and a little bit there. But when it's actual people going to see them and saying, look, fellas, this is a problem. You better do something and fix it up. They respond really well.
Mm. Mm. Well, good to check in with you, John. I'm going to sign out for our community for Q&A shortly, and I'm going to close out on my last song called Rise Like Lions, which also
good. Excellent.
And Julian in that as well. But anything else that you'd like to be able to share with us in closing?
No, I just want to say thanks, Paul. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm.
Thanks.
Mm.
It's always a pleasure, Paul.
Yeah, it is.
And if I may be so bold, give my regards to your mum and Catherine.
I will do. So thank you for your time. Just I'm going to play the song on the outro, and then if you could just stay for a little bit of Q&A with our private community, that'd be great.
Fine.
Okay, wonderful. Stand by. This is my last single called Rise Like Lions. I hope you like it.
It's time for we the people to rise up together as one and overcome the tyrannical shadow plaguing our planet. We have more in common than we do that separates us. Rise like lions from your slumber. We need you now in great numbers.